The main reason I wanted to be a part of this film was to work with Nichols. You know, he was someone who I'd admired for a very, very long time. So when I initially got the script sent through with his name attached, you know, that was so exciting to me. And then, you know, kind of realizing that the script was based on a photography book and these people were real and, you know, set in the 1960s, 70s, about bikers, you know, that was extremely enticing. So it was kind of all of those elements, really. And then I was very fortunate to have like 30 minutes worth of interviews of Kathy. And I remember kind of reading the script and listening to the audio and just like completely falling in love with her. She's a very exuberant woman who says exactly what she thinks. And she's an incredible storyteller. And I don't think she quite realizes how good of a storyteller she is. So, you know, when she narrates the film, she's kind of, you know, a lot of the story is told from her perspective, which I thought was really interesting. The photos are so beautiful, you know, you can't help but when you read that book, like want to be a part of it. And I think what's so incredible about Danny is, you know, the kind of environments in which he's captured these people in. Like with Kathy, I only had like three or two photographs of her, but there was so much that I could draw from those pictures and how, you know, you can see he's been observing and they're not aware that he's taking the pictures. And, you know, as an actor, an actress, when you're coming to do this and you're kind of trying to find every kind of little piece of information, there was actually so much that you were able to draw from the photographs. At the start of the film, we meet her and, you know, it's kind of split between present moment and past and voiceover, and she's speaking about the first time that she meets them. And when she meets them for the first time, like, she's disgusted by them and she's terrified of them, you know? She's like speaking about them having their belly buttons out and like, you know, it's like a very kind of foreign environment for her. But then there's also the kind of excitement and the thrill of the unknown. And I think with Benny, there was kind of instant connection. And then over time, it's like that novelty and that thing that initially, you know, I guess she was able to look past actually became much more dangerous and kind of damaging. And I think, you know, Kathy's had a previous marriage, she has 3 children. I think she really desires a life with Benny, and doesn't have the kind of, he has an inability to give her that. And it's interesting because I think, you know, Kathy and Johnny are both really seeking something out in Benny that he's unable to give them. He's like the nicest guy ever. And it's kind of funny because a lot of our stuff so far has been just kind of like looks to each other. Like we've had so little dialogue. But, you know, within those moments, you have to tell so much. You know, I remember us having kind of a few conversations before we started because, you know, they've been together for, you know, quite some time within the story, but you never really get a sense of, you never see them in their private moments, and the moments that you do are so fleeting. So it was really important for us to make sure that you get an essence of their relationship, you know, the good and the bad. I remember my first day, I had no dialogue and we were all kind of sat around a campfire. And it was a night shoot, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and, you know, everyone was freezing cold. And Shannon had like 2 pages of dialogue. And I remember like watching him for the first time and then just kind of looking around, and all of us were just like, well, like we can all just go home. Like, it was incredible. It was like a masterclass, you know? And I was sat next to Austin and I was like, you know, we were kind of saying, you know, from now on, I'm just going to think, what would Shannon do? Whenever I come to a scene, like, just think, what would Shannon do? There was just something very kind of confident and unaware about the way she was always poised in images, which I loved, you know. There was no kind of self-awareness and almost kind of masculine, but then still very feminine in that her hair's done and her nails, like in she always had a red nail, and in a few of the images she was kind of checking them. And so there was kind of those beats that felt very clear and important. There's no kind of bias with her. She was witness to a lot of this. And she very much does just tell it how it is, you know, in all aspects of her life, you know. I think if you ask her a question, she's going to give you a very honest answer because she doesn't overthink it too much. So I think that enables the story to be told in a way that is more honest and more interesting. I think if the guys were telling the story, it would be, you know, it would be very, very different, and there'd be a lot that'd be cut out and maybe made to sound a little bit cooler, or, you know, the difficulties would be erased and it would be glorified. Whereas she was always she was a part of it, but she was always on the peripheral. And I think she called things for what they were, you know, and I think she makes for a more reliable narrator because of that.
I actually started getting into photography on my own. And I had bought a camera and I was doing some traveling. And I was actually going to take the rest of the year off. And I wasn't going to take any more work. And I was just going to travel and actually like take photos and just write and hang out and, you know, enjoy my life. And then my agent called and said, hey, we have this script. And I saw that it was shooting in my hometown. I was like, it's kind of weird. There's too many, like, you know, universal signaling, I feel like. So I was like, I think we have to do this. There's too many signs that say I kind of have to do this thing. I drove up to Maine, actually. I spent a weekend, and he has a cabin up there in a lake house. And he goes there for like 2-3 weeks out of the year for fishing. So I drove up to Maine from New York and spent the weekend with him attempting to fish. We caught nothing. And more or less, you know, he showed me how to take photos. He showed me, you know, things. He showed me like all of his like collections of, you know, different letters and pieces that he had and whatnot. And we just chatted and we talked. And, you know, mostly I just sat back on the boat and let him just kind of talk to me about his experience and, you know, meeting the guys and like why he wanted to do it. The photos are their own thing. And then the transcriptions are their own thing as well, because the transcriptions are these really, not grotesque, but they're dark stories, a lot of them are, you know. And then these photos, though, are like very romantic in terms of the images that he has of these people. And so, you know, which also I think tracks with what we were kind of saying. I think, you know, for Danny, it's like he can't help but like fall in love with his subjects, if you will. Well, it's kind of like the role of an actor or that of a writer or a director. You know, it's a person that's like just trying to, I mean, that's my favorite part, honestly. One of my favorite parts about what I do is the kind of infiltration, espionage of it all. It's true, though, because I think that's what kind of drew me to it, was because, like, oh, it's not about, you know, like me at all. It's about these people and being able to truly observe them in a way and kind of, you know, be obsessed with those people. I mean, I was excited to see everyone, if I'm being honest, because, like, you know, I moved to New York at 17, wanting to be an actor, and so, you know, I watched Shannon on stage over and over and over again. I, you know, grew up watching Hardy. Can't help it, man. Like, you know, or, you know, Paul Sparks. Like, I grew up watching these guys and wanted to emulate them and like be like them. And I studied them for so long in their element that, you know, to then continue to, like we talk about, be the observer and watch them. It's like, man, this is going to be fun. I was like, it's either going to be really fun or it's going to be crazy. And that's a little bit of both. Jeff is so laid back and easy, and I think like genuinely excited for whatever's going to happen. He doesn't like to rehearse. He likes to just shoot it, which I think is great because it's like, oh, yeah, fine, whatever, we'll see what happens. And we're all figuring it out. And the great thing is for the most part, it's hard because usually you're running short on time and you're like, gotta go. But, we've actually had a lot of moments here where we've been fortunate enough to really take our time and do a lot of takes of things. And that's allowed us, at least as actors, to, I think, show up fresh and maybe not have all the answers and start to figure it out together. Austin's great. He's a really lovely guy. And, he's always game. He's pretty much game for everything. And it was a lot of fun watching him. And we had a lot of fun, man. And I really liked, man, actually, one of my photos, it's my favorite photo that I was able to get. And as I was looking through some of my photos, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I got that shot. Like, that was one of those things where you're like, oh, I had nothing to do with that. That was just like a weird, like, timing thing, But it was the day when all the guys, it was like, I don't know, we had like 30, 40 guys on motorcycles, and we were in this rural town. We were driving along this road, and there's cornfields everywhere, and the sun was setting. And, I'm on the back, and Austin's up front, and I get this shot of him. And it's one of my favorite photos to this day, honestly. I'm like, I can't believe I got that shot.